Welcome to another episode of the Globally Connected Podcast. We hope you all are doing well as we are. It's been a long week, but we made it to another great episode. First of all, we want to thank our current subscribers. We're looking forward to the new ones. We do want to share with you all. We're doing something special as we're looking to get the 50 subscribers. So once we hit our 50th subscriber, we're going to do something special for them. And another add to it is if you help us get the 50th subscriber, we're going to do something special for you. So we're on the chase to get that 50th subscriber. So help us get there. I'll turn it over to Gigi before we get this party started.
Yeah, hello everybody. We switched things up today, so now it's actually morning for me and night for Jerome.
Yeah.
So got some daylight. But yeah, I hope everybody's doing great. We're looking forward to this episode with you guys. So Jerome, I'll let you go ahead and introduce today's topic and then we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about something that's very trendy and that's been the top of a lot of people's topics nowadays of conversations. So today is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're not politicians or into politics, but it's a topic that we want to talk about. So for those who may not know or aren't keen on the topic of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a set of values and practices that promote the participation and representation of people from all backgrounds. So it's pretty straightforward. So that's what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. So it's been trending in the news. I'm not sure if it's been trending where you at, Gigi, but we're gonna talk about it. So I want to start off by us defining it. So for me, I would say diversity, equity, and inclusion is it's a good question. Hmm. What does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to me? I would say it basically means no judgment and just everybody, no matter the color of your skin or background, it is everybody included to come together for one common goal of achieving whatever it is, no matter the setting, whether it's professional, personal, etc. So basically, just everybody actually being included and not feeling left out. So that's my definition.
Yeah, so when I see diversity, equity, and inclusion, it makes me think of bringing people on board, whether it's a company, an operation, etc., of many different backgrounds, different ways of life, different cultures, etc., and having the people on board. But I think, sometimes diversity, equity, and inclusion is just kind of used as like a token word.
Mhm.
Like companies want to have diversity, equity, inclusion, but I think it's not truly implemented if you're not actually implementing the values and feedbacks of the people that you're hiring. So I think sometimes some companies can just hire someone of a diverse background just to check the box, and I think that's wrong. I think it's better to actually implement like the different perspectives of everybody with these different backgrounds too, and actually give people senior roles too that are coming from a quote unquote diverse background. um so it's a term that I feel like is very overused,
Yeah.
and sometimes can dilute the actual value of it because it can just be something to check off.
So that's a good point right there. So I think we both have the same perspective. But before I make any subjections, I'm curious to know, do you think, because this was a term it's been around for some time, but it became trendy around 2019, 2020 during the pandemic time. But do you think when it was used, do you think it was actually used for the purpose of achieving diversity, equity, and inclusion, or do you think it was just used as a money grab? Because it sounds good. Let's promote this to actually bring about something that sounds good, but we don't actually support it or we aren't for it. What do you think about that?
Hmm. I think, around that time, probably a lot of companies felt like they needed to,
Mhm.
because it um, it got to a point where more people were aware of sort of the misleveling in the workforce,
Mhm.
and so people would raise it to attention more, and we're like, hey, like a lot of these companies are really not hiring people besides like your standard white male,
Hmm.
or hiring people that they are used to, or people that they've had experience with and already know.
Yeah.
They're not really putting themselves out there to bring on people. And of course, this varies by company. Like, there's some companies that, based on their company culture, have always been diverse. But I think there has been more of a push for diversity and inclusion. And so a lot of companies kind of felt like they needed to do it to be socially correct in a way as well. How about you, Jerome? What do you think about kind of the trend of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And do you see that it's changed or grown since 2019, 2020?
I think it exactly what it was. The objective of it was to basically just ride along the bandwagon because it's hot, it's trendy, and this is what sounds good at the moment, and this is what everybody else is doing. So let's just do what sells. I don't think 95% of the companies that was doing it, I don't think they were actually doing it for the intent to basically be diverse, have equity included within the company, and include actual everybody. That's just my personal opinion. This is obviously subjective. This is my perspective. But I just don't think that was the intent of it, because if you look nowadays of where we are at with diversity, equity, and inclusion, just look where we at. I just think everybody likes things when it sounds good, but when things don't sound good and the trend and fad has lost this what's the word I'm looking for? Enamorization, then they go on to something else. And let's see the next thing that's gonna sell. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't have these problems. We wouldn't have people getting laid off, etc. So that's just my take on it, man. And it's sad though, because I feel like a lot of, to be honest, that from my perspective, that is what make any establishment or environment go. You need to have people from all different walks of life and background come together, because you have a lot of, that's when the best ideas get created. You have people from all walks of life come together and just share their perspective. Because when you have that, you have so many different thoughts, ideas, conversations, solutions, problems, and ways on how problems should be solved, brought to the forefront to actually achieve a goal. But to hear that there, a lot of people don't think like that. That's fine, but it's the reason why you have so many companies falling, and startups potentially taking over based on our past. So that's my perspective on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and do I think is something that was here to stay. Which leads to my next point. Do you think it's important? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
or what is the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's extremely important when it's done in the right way. I think the essence of what it means is extremely important. Like Jerome says, it creates a lot of innovation and thinking, because if you are in a company and you, for example, are innovating a product, or you want to expand into a new market, or really anything, even if you're doing your existing day-to-day operations. But when you have people who all come from relatively the same walk of life, whether that's they come from similar universities or from similar towns or from a similar background experience, it's hard to get different perspectives and to actually get ideas that are more groundbreaking and like coming from somebody who hasn't had the same experience as you. So if you're trying to serve your market, but all the people making the decisions have a similar walk of life, how are you going to better understand the needs of your diverse market,
Mhm.
of people coming from all walks of life? So I think diversity is extremely important in businesses, but actually creating a strategy where you are valuing the importance of the diversity, and it's not just like something you're checking off, but you actually see the huge positives, and it's something that you kind of want to do. And you want to have these different perspectives coming in. It's going to foster innovation. It's going to foster collaboration. It's going to help you enter new markets. It's going to help you with your brand awareness and your messaging to different audiences. So It's actually a huge benefit. And I think where it is even more powerful is when people are doing are trying to be more diverse in their company. So say they've identified their problem is, hey, actually as a company we're not that diverse. We're looking around and we're like, hey, everybody here kind of looks the same and thinks the same, and they want to be more diverse. Don't just hire people to check the box in kind of like intern roles or like very entry level roles where then the decision making is still coming from the top down. Actually hire people in your senior leadership that have a diverse background too, and see how this will make changes in your company, because then the actual decisions being made will come from that perspective as well, rather than just having people that are still going to follow the orders of the same people you had beforehand. How
Yeah.
about you, Jerome? What do you think kind of is the importance of diversity in a company, and how can a company even implement this?
As far as the innovation, the thinking, and just approaching any situation from all angles. I like to look at it. And let's apply it from mathematically, geometrically, right? You got the head, I'm using the triangle. You got the head, and you got the two corners, right? So, in order to make that triangle actually form, you need different perspectives, different angles, and everything to be able to make that shape actually be correctly formed in order to do whatever it is that you need to do. So I think it's definitely important, which is why I personally operate from an angle of wanting to be in any type of team or collaborate with people who come from different walks and backgrounds, different from my own. That was always my objective. And I don't know if I ever told you guys that, but I always was fascinated with people who come from a background different from my own, which is why I chose to go to Georgia State, because I wanted to be in an environment in the city, but number one, with people from all walks of life, because you learn about their culture, how they are able to learn and grasp material. When it's time to have fun. Oh, how do they have fun? Do they what type of sports do they play? They want to come together and have communion. I mean, not communion, community, etc. So I think it's definitely important because if we all think the same way and all come from the same backgrounds of life, we are going to have some problems. Not to say you won't have problems with people who come from diverse backgrounds. I just think the percentage of you having problems with somebody who comes from a background similar to you is very high compared to someone who doesn't. It's going to be a lot of bumping heads because you're so accustomed to and used to that way of thinking that when you come with meet somebody that is adaptable and having adaptable ways of thinking, it's going to help you achieve your goals. So that's my perspective on that. So that's how I
Mhm.
feel about it. Do you think diversity, equity, and inclusion applies to international business? If so, how does it apply to international business? And if no, why not? I asked that question because we have a global consulting company where we work with people all over the world, in America, outside of America, etc. So I'm curious to know, do you think that applies to our industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the scope of international business, this can apply to any company looking to expand into a new region internationally as well. And I think, that can range from anything. Like you could have your own fashion line, you could have a dental practice, you could have this. And in that case, I think absolutely diversity is important here because, if you are trying to reach a new customer base, you want to target a different customer segment, you will absolutely um, you will absolutely learn more by having people on your team that can understand these diverse backgrounds. And even if they are not from this specific background of the market that you're trying to target, even if they're able to be from a different background and help you identify the questions to ask um, when you are fitting your product to that new market, like understanding the needs and wants of that market, understanding their habits, understanding their consumer habits as well, their day-to-day habits. Like you're going to have a mindset that is more innovative and also asking these questions and curious. And I think having a diverse team can help you with that. Absolutely, from my perspective. How about you, Jerome? What do you think diversity plays in within international business?
Yeah, 1000% things that it applies to international business because culture. In order for international business to be what it is, you need culture. You need to basically understand that everybody has different tastes and preferences, and everybody doesn't work and operate the same. So, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion applies because there is no international business without diversity, equity, and inclusion of everybody who comes from all walks of life. That's the whole point of globalization. So yeah, I absolutely think that it applies to international business.
Yeah. It's so interesting how we've made like diversity, equity, and inclusion such a term
Yeah.
because that there was such a lack of this before. And it's
Mhm.
kind of sad to think about because you would think that's just the normal thing to do, right? Like as a world, we are all diverse already. Uh there isn't like one group whose perspective should matter more than another, or there shouldn't really be this separation between different people and thinking like, okay, let's keep everybody in the company like the same. Like that's, if you actually think about it, that's actually not normal.
Yeah.
And diversity is actually quite more normal. Like why would you not want to have people of different walks of life together creating the vision of a team? you know, Especially if you want to expand into a new market, you should embrace having different perspectives on board, and that's kind of like a natural thing to do. If you see that your enterprise has all of the same people, then you should ask more questions about your hiring process and your hiring team and the people that you choose to interview. Like why are these choices being made to pick these specific people versus others? Because diversity, it's something that just exists in the world that we live in already.
Yeah. I just think a lot of people are single minded. They think microly instead of macroeconomically.
Yeah,
So
true.
I just think that what it is. Like when coming together, I just think people have one goal a lot of times, and that's to make money and not make impact. So I think that's why a lot of times you don't have a lot of people at the head who don't think about diversity, equity, and inclusion because
Mhm.
again, it's not trendy. The trend is to a lot of company goals is to make money, make the most money, and that's it. They don't think about creating impact. They don't think about
Yeah.
creating others who may not come from the best walk of life, but can actually contribute because of their journey. And because of that journey, that could actually include whatever it is you're trying to achieve, whether that's grit, whether that's determination, whether that's passion, etc. That right there, all of those intangibles within somebody can help actually take a company to the next level. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's actually a good thing. What are the pros of diversity, equity, and inclusion being involved with an international business? I think we kind of talked about it already, but if you had to just kind of give a couple, what do you think are the pros of DEI being involved in international business?
Yeah, so we've already talked about a few things like market reach, innovation. Um, I think as well can be like ability to overcome challenges. If you have more of a diverse perspective, you can think of different ways to take on a challenge and like actually find a solution rather than just one standard approach that kind of is the norm. Having different people on your team, you can actually adapt more and think like, okay, you know, this is maybe more risky, like this is a different approach that we could take. You have different viewpoints like coming together to overcome an obstacle or to even come with mitigation strategies to obstacles before they happen. How about you, Jerome? What are some other things that you believe like companies can benefit from having diversity?
Yeah, I would say the pros is if a company is able to have that involved with the international business, number one, I think they will be able to think differently. Number two, I think they will be able to understand and approach whatever it is they're trying to approach. And I think most importantly, I think they will be able to be empathetic. I think that's a big one because including people from all walks of life, etc., allows you to be empathetic and be selfless. And I think that right there is the number one ingredient to being successful with diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever it is that you're involved in, whether that's business, sports, etc., the case may be. What are the cons? Are there any cons? What are the cons of DEI being involved with an international business?
I mean, like to what I said before, I think the cons are more about the intention behind why you do it.
Mhm.
So if your intention is just to check off a box, I think that can be a con because then you're not actually giving the people a voice and actually trying to understand and hear and incorporate these different perspectives within the business, but you're just kind of doing it to have a number, and say that, hey, we have 5 people from a diverse background. Um, so I think the con can come from when companies just do it just to do it and don't actually like bring people in to shape the vision and the company culture as a whole. But I don't think there's like a con to having like a diversity of people in your company. How about you,
You,
Joe?
that's actually a good point. You don't think there's a con of having too many people of diverse backgrounds involved in the company? I'm not saying you're wrong or right. I'm just curious to hear your perspective on that. Why do you think that?
I mean, because again, I think like diversity is this term that we've made so like coined, and it's like a bit, I don't know, it's a bit too much like to make a term like that so coined because
Mhm.
like why would I be like, okay, I don't want to have too many people from diverse backgrounds in the company? What do you mean? Like we all come from different backgrounds. Like so what background is favored compared to another background, you know? Like that's why I think it doesn't, I don't know how it would be like, okay, there's too much diversity in this company. Like we got to slow down the diversity, bring in more people that, you know, are familiar with it. Maybe like for example, if you're operating in a specific market
Yeah.
and you need more people in that specific market that you're operating, yeah, you can hire more people from that specific market to help you understand that. But I don't necessarily think that means like stop being diverse or get rid of people who are not of this background or something. Personally, I don't know. How about you?
That was a trick question. I just want to get your perspective.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't. I agree with you as well. I don't think there's any cons of diversity, DEI being involved in international business. I don't think with this particular subject, I don't think you can have too much of it because the more the better. Especially with an industry such as international business, because the purpose of international business is to actually make the world more connected. You know, um, whether that's supply chain, logistics, law, consulting, like we do, etc. So I don't see any cons with it.
Hmm.
So my next point, what role does DEI play in the future of international business? Like I say within the next 2 years, is it a good thing or a bad thing with diversity and equity and inclusion? Like where do we see it in the future with international business when it comes to that?
International business will continue to grow because, you know, I think businesses are realizing like, you know, if I, for example, if I'm a company based in Thailand and all the employees that I have are Thai or neighboring countries around Thailand, but I want to expand into the US or I want to expand into Africa or something, I will need to have a perspective of somebody from there or who understands that market. So, as I want to grow, I think I would want to have more people of different walks of life in the business that I'm operating in to even be able to understand that market and reach it. So, to answer your question, I think yes. I think it definitely plays a role because as companies want to expand their business, they're going to need to understand that perspective and they would benefit greatly from actually having people on board who come from those walks of life or who have worked in those markets or who have targeted these markets before.
Do you see a lot of companies in America adopting those practices from companies that are outside of America to actually really implement what diversity, equity, and inclusion should encompass, or no?
I see that depending on their goals. So I think like if there are American companies that want to expand internationally as well, typically maybe they'll outsource somebody internationally or they'll partner with a company that already is in the market that they want to enter. So then they're getting some collaboration between their workforce and the workforce of another to collaborate and form the vision. So I think yes. And you?
I
Mhm.
don't know. I would have to go with no more than yes, because the agenda of a lot of these companies aren't for the benefit of the good. It's for the benefit of just making money. A lot of these companies don't actually care about the people. So I'm gonna go with no. That's my perspective on that.
So do you think less companies are going to do international business in the United States and keep things more in-house?
That's a good question. I think you'll see big companies actually doing more things in-house, but I think you'll see startups and smaller companies actually doing business outside of globally. I think you will see that because I just think a lot of big companies are conservative and they
Hmm.
just stuck on one thing that works, and because it's worked for so long, they want to continue that. But I think with a lot of startups, they are actually negating from that, and they kind of have a sense of where a lot of things is going related to companies, etc. in America. I just think they want to stray away from that and actually think outside the box before another pandemic or something happens, to where if a shutdown happens, you won't be restricted of doing anything to keep your company running effectively, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. So just overall in general though, the next 2 to 3 years of DEI, where it's gonna be, I have no idea, because you even see it, me being involved in film. I kind of got a glimpse of seeing what they're doing with that in film. So I don't know where it's gonna be in the next 2 to 3 years. It's kind of scary, to be honest, because you wouldn't think in industries such as entertainment, that DEI will be a problem. So I want to relate that to like sports or like even fashion. Like, what industries do you think will be affected in the next 2 to 3 years related to DEI?
Everyone. I think everyone's going to be affected. I think it's up to every company and every enterprise and every film industry and every fashion industry to kind of set their own rules of, what do we want to do here? What do we want to accomplish? Um, I think there's going to be more pressure now because I think it looks like a lot of laws that support diversity, equity, and inclusion and make it to where, you have to incorporate this in your hiring process. Maybe this is going to be taken away, which actually will kind of shed the light on who is really doing it to really do it versus who is doing it just to check off a box. Because if you really care about diversity in your team, that shouldn't inhibit you. You can still hire people from different walks of life and you can still incorporate different backgrounds. But if, the whole reason that it was being done was just to check off a box, then that just shows that it wasn't even genuine in the first place. So, I would hope and I would encourage companies to continue with incorporating people of different backgrounds because of the benefits that it has to the overall work culture and workplace. And, you want people to be in a place where they feel like their perspective matters and like they can engage and share with each other. So, I think it'll change in the next 2 to 3 years. But I also believe the world is becoming more interconnected than ever before. I believe people are moving borders more than ever before. So I think like, you know, people, we have more people in different companies than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc., especially with digitization, and the growth of digital nomads, people moving around, I think we'll continue to have a global workforce, in my opinion.
I have a question to ask you. With you having the experience of working corporate in America and now in another country, what is the difference between, I'm sure they probably don't talk about it in Thailand, but have you noticed the difference between DEIs in America compared to working corporate in another country?
um I think the term is more of a cliche and a coined term in the US. Like, you see it everywhere. Like,
Yeah,
anytime you do a hiring application, there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion clause in there.
yeah.
Um, so I think it's the term is kind of used so much in the United States. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I'm really not sure. I don't really have the enough facts to give like a um all around perspective on this, but I think it's because there was a problem in the United States, and there still is a problem in the United States, where there's a lot of companies that weren't hiring people of certain backgrounds. I think Europe, for example, definitely needs to hop on board, because Europe is, I think, further back than the United States when it comes to this.
Oh,
Um, but I think, like, you know, in the US, it was identified that there's a problem of not having people from different walks of life in the work environment. And so there was a push to get more companies to do that. But then I think it kind of got diluted, because sometimes people were just doing it just to check off the box and not actually give people the voice in senior leadership, and actually have them in the decision making process, and actually have the opinions like considered and implemented. So I think, like, when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, again, it's going to go back to why. Like, what is the reason behind the company is doing it, and what is your intention behind it? And I think that varies globally.
man, what do you guys think about DEI? What are your thoughts? Where do you see it in the future? Um, yeah, just let us know what you think. What do you think about it currently, etc.? Has it affected you all? And if so, what ways has it affected you all? What would you like to see changed about DEI? That's actually a good thing. I think the public should be able to voice their perspective on what they would like to see change about DEI. I actually think that's something that should really happen, because you don't never get to hear the public perspective on what they think about DEI and what they would like to see change. I don't know. People don't talk about that actually publicly. Now that I think about that, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like, we're all kind of the future of the workforce, the president of the workforce, and our opinions in it matter. I think, for me personally, I think every company has the ability to make these decisions. Like, there's no standard um out there. Well, there is a standard, but every company, you know has to be actionable and, like, thoughtful and reflective into how they will implement this in their company. So, what can companies do to bring people of different backgrounds in, and how can they take in the public perception, to Jerome's point too?
yeah. Well, that's why a company is going to continue to be successful, because we are all about DEI, not just because of the term. It's just because we are people who just think holistically and just actually love to connect with people from all walks of life, man. So
It just happens naturally. Like, that's the thing. We don't too much overthink it. It just happens. Like, and that's kind of the point I want to make, is, like, we've made it such a cliche term because it was such a problem, but actually the problem was the companies where that was, like, not a thing, like, where it was not normal to have people of different backgrounds. Like, we should really be asking why is that happening there? Because it just kind of is a natural thing, especially for us operating in a global consulting firm. Like, we meet people from all different backgrounds, and we work with people from all different backgrounds, and that's not a basis that we look at when we are talking to somebody. Like, are they of the same background as us? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, again, it depends on the people and the company, of course, but especially the people in the background and what their perspectives are. So, yeah, hopefully, you know, we get more people of diverse backgrounds in senior leadership because I think that can make a lot of changes.
Well, if not, we'll continue to do our part at Globally Connected Group. All right. Any lasting thoughts? If not, then please be sure to comment, like, subscribe. Remember, we're trying to get to 50 subscribers, so we can do something special for that 50th subscriber. But we hope you guys enjoyed another great episode, and we're looking forward to you all continuing to join us on this journey. So stay tuned for another episode next week.
Yes.